Memoirs of a Balancer. Vessel. For those of you just jumping in, or those of you who want to catch up, I've put a link to the video with parts 1 and 2 below this video. Now, I've had a few comments as well as a few PMs about the archivists. First off, yes, they are as awesome as they sound. Secondly, in my humble opinion, they may not have the most dangerous job, but they definitely have the hardest. The archivist wing is mostly made up of men and women with eidetic memories, extremely rare in adults, or photographic memories, or hyperthymesia. As cool as it sounds, these poor men and women generally suffer from extreme social disorders, depression, and in a few cases autism in some form. This causes them to be a very close-knit and closed-off group. They generally only like talking with us balancers or our handlers. I think that stems from their craving for knowledge fresh from the source. They love to drill me and debrief me after any operation, even ones that yield nothing interesting. But we still love them and have fostered a trust with them that we hold in high regards. Now, back to where I left off in my other entry. If you haven't caught on from my teaser at the end of my last entry, or from the title of this entry, I'm not all me. It was explained to me extremely unfiltered and in straightforward terms that I'm a vessel for something that I brought back from the other side. This doesn't mean that I'm possessed or not in control of my body and actions, though that has happened before and it was the cause of my blackouts in the hospital. It's more like having a second consciousness that is swirling around up top and likes to talk like it's the little voice in my head. There's also the added physical benefits in the way of healing, stamina, and strength. I'm no fucking superhuman, but under duress, I've done things that should be physically impossible. I've moved faster than I should be able to, lifted things that would break my back normally, and I heal at an unprecedented rate. The biggest downside is the toll this takes on my mind and body. You may think this all sounds astounding, but it sucks. When I use these attributes, it usually leaves me extremely drained and can cause physical injury under extreme conditions. When Sam first told me this, fresh out of my first traumatizing mission at that, I well and truly thought she was fucking crazy. She just stared at me with her usual deadpan face, while I stuttered like an idiot for a minute, trying to form a cohesive thought process that I could put into words that made sense. "The fuck are you talking about, Wednesday?" I know, eloquent, right? I meant what I said. They are not your thoughts. Also, my name is Sam, or Miss Handler, if you prefer that. She said, that unsettling deadpan never faltering. "Don't try and change the subject. What do you mean they weren't my own thoughts? I'm not possessed. I'm me." I was starting to get worked up at this point. I've been studying the countless books, manuals, and journals that she seemed to be constantly throwing at me and quizzing me about. Great deduction. Of course you're not possessed. We wouldn't be having this conversation if you were. What I'm telling you is that you're a vessel. Well, I've never heard of a vessel, and at this point I've damn near memorized everything you've been drilling into my skull. So, what the fuck is a vessel? At this point we were begging to draw a crowd, which isn't hard to do in a mostly self-contained facility. I could see people peeking around corners and looking out office windows. Their eyes and stares were enough to get my blood boiling. Did they know this? Did they know what I am? Am I the only one that doesn't know? What the actual fuck am I? All these thoughts ran through my head as I watched a crowd slowly gather at a safe distance around us. How about we have this conversation in my office? Or do you enjoy undermining me in front of my peers and embarrassing yourself? She asked, her face never wavering or showing an emotion besides neutrality. It was the wrong thing to say. Fuck that! We can have this conversation right here and right now! I was almost frothing at this point, and I didn't give two shits about how she felt or what anyone thought about me. How about you give me some goddamn answers and stop screwing with my head? I want to know what you mean. Hell, everyone here probably already knows more about me than I do. And if they don't, then they should. My shouting was beginning to draw security and the other balancers. Fine then, we'll do this here. You're a vessel. You have a being, or being's consciousness living inside you, and it's why we recruited you. You went to the other side and brought something else back with you. She said this like she was reading a file. Her lack of care or emotion, even with matters like this, stunned me. What did I bring back? My bravado and anger from before was thoroughly flushed out of my system. You brought me back. What do you mean I brought you back? I asked Sam. You didn't bring me back. A look of concern crossed her unbearable mask, even if it was only for a second. That look of confusion and concern caused me to do a double take. You just said that I brought you back. Why would you say that? I saw another balancer walking towards us as Sam closed in on me. Cody, I didn't say anything. What did you just hear? But you... What the fuck? I started to turn, thinking it was someone behind me talking in my ear when it piped up again. I said you brought me back. As I stared into empty space behind me, it all clicked. The voice, it was inside my head. There was someone or something inside me. Holy shit! I whirled around to look at Sam. Her staggering step back and the fact that the other balancer was now reaching for me alerted me to the fact that something was very, 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 very wrong. Let's go somewhere safe, mate, said the balancer, now clutching my arm in an iron grip. No, wait! Hold on! What the fuck is happening? Sam, what is... I cut myself short as I saw my reflection in an office window. My eyes! My fucking eyes! I swear I was watching the universe in them. Again. Par the course so far, I felt myself collapsing. Well, there he goes, said the balancer, who also now happened to be the only thing keeping me upright. See you in a couple hours, mate. The last thing I saw was his cheeky fucking grin and my eyes reflected in his. When I came back to, I was groggy, confused, and had a wicked case of cottonmouth. I scrambled upright, only to feel myself being forced back down into the chair. Not the best idea for someone who just took an unpredicted power nap, said a familiar voice. I slowly looked behind me to see a grinning, scruffy face. It was the other balancer from before. Stuffing my head in my hands, I coughed out, "The fuck happened?" Oi, if you're gonna speak, try drinking this, and hold your head up like a right bloke, he said as he tossed a bottle of water at me. I sat there, lubing myself back up, thinking that this was one person I may finally be able to get used to in this place. Once I had my head back on straight, I asked, "Sorry, bud, what happened?" Well, you decided to get in a knockdown, drag-out banger in the middle of the office with your handler, and when I came to see the ruckus, you started to freak out and then you went all starry-eyed on me. After that, I guess you decided it was a good time for a nap, and then I dragged your ass here. He paused for a second to chuckle to himself. I was afraid you were gonna lash out, but instead you decided to scare the fuck out of everyone around. Well, did you drag me here by my ankles? 'Cause my head feels like you may have bounced me a couple times on the way here. Where the hell are we, anyway? I asked, looking around. As he laughed his ass off, I took a quick look around. We were at the only table in a room surrounded by shelves and shelves of books. We're in the archives, mate. It's about the only place that you can get some real peace and quiet in this joint. By the way, name's Duncan, he said as he thrust his hand out and grabbed my forearm. I didn't know what to do at first and awkwardly grabbed his. Cody, nice to meet you, I said as he finally released my sore arm from his death grip of steel. Well, Cody, you're one of the few people in this place who isn't serious 24/7. How about we have a chat? Sure, About what?
How about we start with that voice in your head?
He said, the goofy grin quickly fading. That was how I met my soon-to-be sociopathic partner in crime. It was also the beginning of a journey in self-discovery. I can honestly say, without Duncan, I would probably be dead and never would have figured out what was inside of me or how to handle it. Well, sorry for the quick update, but that's enough for now. I can hear banging at my door and Duncan yelling from the other side. We're still trying to figure it out, but something is coming. Don't talk to your mirror for the next couple days. Memoirs of a Balancer. Writer. I'm not gonna lie, this next part of my story is hard to put into words. This is more due to what I know now after years of experiences, and wanting you to hear my story as it unfolded, and not vomit words into your ears that would leave you confused and scared. A lot of what I have come to learn started with that first time I spent with Duncan in the archives. When I first met him, I took an instant liking to him. Even though he was a crazy-ass Australian that I'd never met before my blowout with Sam, there was something instantly familiar about him. We clicked instantly, and in the span of a couple hours we were trading stories about our past life, and more current stories like old friends catching up. We spent so long in the archives that first day and into the night, the only thing that made us stop was Sam calling my cell and inquiring if I was back to my normal self and ready to get back to business like the professional that she portrayed me to her bosses as. We split ways that first night with a simple promise. Whenever we were at the organization, we would hang out more, and if the need ever arose that we needed a partner for a mission, that we'd request one another. Hell, I'd never had an op that involved another balancer before, aside from my training tag-alongs, but I found myself already looking forward to one. As we were leaving, Duncan stopped me before we split ways.
Oi! We never ended up answering me question about what the fuck is inside you, mate.
He said. Well, if I figure out an answer to that, you'll be the second person to know. I kept true to our unspoken rule that everything a balancer knew would be reported to their handler first, and thus distributed properly. As much as Sam drove me up a wall sometimes, I still respected her.
Well, if you have trouble with that, we may have to make a road trip. There's a Haitian priestess I know in New Orleans that has worked wonders with possessions and identifying some seriously unnerving shit inside people for me in the past.
I watched him shudder as he said that and decided to keep it to myself. If this woman gave someone like Duncan the chills, someone with a good amount of experience under their belt, then it was enough to make me hold my tongue. Well, let me go make some apologies. I feel like I'm slinking back to Mom after I acted up. His full-blown laughter and a raised hand over his shoulder as he walked away showed his lack of sympathy for me. Asshole. But hey, who's not an asshole these days? At least this guy was my kind of asshole. No homo. After a series of profuse apologies and prostrating, even though she won't admit it, I know Sam liked watching me grovel. Sick woman that she is. Sam declared in her most eloquent form, "Well, it seems to me that you're still fit for duty. But you need some downtime before you go back to full operational duty." You think I'm off my rocker or unstable, don't you, Wednesday? It was more of a statement, but for my own safety I decided to try and make it sound like a question. It didn't work. No, I don't. But whatever is inside of you needs to be in your full control before I even think about sending you back into the field. It was a one-time occurrence. I got worked up. It won't happen again. I know it won't. I'm making sure of that. From here on out, or until we find out what it is, the entity inside you will be codenamed Ryder. Any new information you learn about it will be reported to me immediately. Understand? Yes, Mom, I said with a goofy grin plastered across my face. You're dismissed. I took that as my cue and made a beeline for her office door. Catching me just before the door, she said, No more nicknames. She punctuated this by burying a knife in the wooden doorframe to her office. Right next to my fucking head. If she smiled, I never caught it. It was a simple reminder that I truly didn't know this woman very well, or what she was capable of. Being the awesome badass that I am, I hauled ass out of her office and made my way back to my apartment. Now for a quick background on the organization. The entire branch is housed in a small town-sized base. Everything and anything you needed was self-contained here in a heavily guarded stretch of the middle of fucking nowhere, USA. Everything from housing to training areas, command central, and even a Walmart-sized store of everything that an average person needed was within walking distance. The next few months went by quicker than expected. I spent my time researching more about vessels and what host usually took residence in them. I also spent the time that I wasn't in the archives with Duncan in the training facility. Also with Duncan most of the time. I spent my time familiarizing myself with just about every kind of weapon and fighting style known to man. I was no combat genius, but I was adequate with most styles and weapons, even with just the most basic of training. For some reason, this all seemed to come to me naturally and easy. It was in these training sessions that I grew fond of bladed weapons. They came to me the easiest, and for some reason they were usually the most comfortable for me. There is an old saying, no one wins a knife fight. It's a battle of attrition, and the one who lost the least is eventual winner. Even knowing this, I had the weaponsmith craft me a set of karambits that were made to fit me and to my specs. They were made of Damascus steel with a wicked silver nitrate coating that was forged into the metal. For some reason, there are a lot of creatures that hate silver, and if the silver didn't do the trick, then I'd just slice and dice them. Sam eventually cleared me for operational duty after I went those months without a single instance of the rider showing up, either in a blackout or in my head. Crafty mofo. I think it knew the ramifications of showing itself again, so it tucked itself away and lay dormant for a while. My first few times back in the field were most uneventful. The only thing that stands out during my first couple of months back on the operationally active list was a case of a Dybbuk. Those are some seriously mean bastards. For those of you who don't know, they are an angry, deceased soul that takes possession of someone and wreaks havoc on everything around them. The best way to deal with them is to help them finish whatever business kept them here, or to exorcise them with some Jewish mojo. I got the call late one night that a green case, possible case that was being investigated that may need our intervention, had gone to a red case, a case that needed our immediate intervention. This almost never happens unless something escalates very quickly, and that usually means a path of bodies. I grabbed my gear, which for this case consisted of a Torah or Jewish Bible, my trusty knives, and my sidearm in case the shit went way south. As I jumped into a waiting chopper and secured my communication stud into my ear, I heard Sam berating me to try and excise the spirit rather than killing the host.
Yeah, sure, Mom. Tell that to the person that's trying to kill me.
What grabbed my attention much more vigorously was another familiar voice.
Oi, cunt! I didn't know they were sending you out with me.
I looked up into the cockpit and saw Duncan behind the stick of the chopper. I would have been ecstatic if I didn't have to feel my stomach fall out of my ass as Duncan made the hardest takeoff I've ever felt to this day. Tangent. Thanks to Duncan, I'm now deathly afraid of helicopters, and refuse to get in another one if he's piloting it. Fucking whirly-birds of death. As we sped towards the scene, I was more thoroughly briefed on the situation. Apparently, a mild-mannered father of two with a happy and unassuming life decided to try and kill his wife and kids. Thankfully, they managed to lock themselves in a bedroom and call the police, Normally, this wouldn't tip our radar, but we'd had reports of multiple homicides in this normally sleepy town, and the perps never seemed to remember what happened. The even odder part was that all the afflicted men were practicing Jews. This intrigued us enough to begin a deeper investigation, and with something so recent happening, we decided to try and jump in before the Dybbuk jumped ship and found a new victim. After a bone-shattering flight filled with Duncan's maniacal laughter at my puking and terrified yelping every time he decided to dodge imaginary objects, we finally landed on sweet Mother Earth. When I finally managed to walk again, we jumped into our awaiting SUV. The organization has this amazing magic trick of always having a vehicle awaiting us, wherever we end up going. Fucking black magic right there. Or possibly a rental service. Either way, it's awesome. And we sped off to the town police station to greet our new buddy. After some serious bullshitting and Duncan's suave talking, we convinced the local sheriff that we were FBI. We had one of the techs act as an FBI higher-up and talk the sheriffs into compliance. And told them that we were going to have a talk with their resident psycho. There was only one problem. The two officers that answered the call never made it back to the station. They had apprehended the suspect with minor struggle and were on their way back. That was 2 fucking hours ago. We got their last known position and hauled ass out after them. Surprisingly enough, the sheriff didn't think this was a problem and told us that the officers were probably stopping for a bite to eat. I thought he was joking. Apparently not. As we slammed around bends and broke every driving law possible, we finally reached the spot the squad car had last radioed in from. What greeted us was not a pretty sight. On the side of a wooded road sat a cop car with 2 clearly deceased occupants. The officer that had been driving was still clutching the steering wheel with a close-range gunshot wound to the neck. The passenger in the rear of the car had been ventilated with a few rounds and had obviously bled out. The third occupant, the second responding police officer, was nowhere to be seen, and based on the fact that his portion of the car was the only one devoid of blood and gore, he had seemingly escaped unharmed. We called back to the station from the squad car and informed the sheriff of what had happened. We ordered him to radio the second officer in an attempt to locate him. This is where everything began spiraling down the shitter. The sheriff shakily responded, There's no need. He just walked in. He said they were having radio and car trouble, so he flagged down the car and jumped a ride back. Do not let him leave, mate. The seriousness in Duncan's tone relayed the importance he felt was necessary. As we sped back, we could hear the sheriff trying unsuccessfully to explain the situation. There was no way his officer did it, blah blah, fucking blah. When he finally had enough, Duncan screamed at him that we were officially in control of this case and suspect numero uno was not to leave that fucking station. We arrived with guns drawn and game faces on. Nothing is less fun than a conniving and pissed off spirit, especially one that had a gun. As we ran through the front door, that damn sheriff tried talking us down again. As he rambled on, I yelled, "Fuck that! Where's the cocksucker at?" Duncan's sigh next to me let me know that my professional speaking abilities were still not very good. At this point, Sam chirped in my ear. I almost forgot that our handlers are constantly listening in on our ops and only intervene and talk to us if they feel it's necessary. This is mostly so that they won't distract us, and warned me to calm down and that the man was only defending his officer and didn't know what was really going on. As I bit down on my anger and begrudgingly apologized, our man walked right out of the back of the police station and greeted us. Duncan and I both brought our guns to the ready position, stormed past the sheriff and told the man to raise his hands and get against the wall. That fucker only grinned at us. Now, that didn't bother me as much as everyone else in the room, with the exception of Duncan. The poor guy began speaking excessively fast in Hebrew and began walking toward us. As this guy started walking towards us, I spoke up. "Alright, what do we do now, Wednesday?" Technically, we were supposed to take care of exorcisms or other circumstances like this in private. But at this point, I was hoping to just shoot the asshole before he got close enough to attack us. "You need to get him out of there and exorcise it. It's jumped bodies recently, so it shouldn't be able to do so again for a while."
Easier said than done, Mom. You know what this thing has already done, and I'm not so inclined as to try and tangle with him up close.
That wasn't an option, Cody. Do it.
But, Mom!
I bemoaned her.
You about done, cunt?
Duncan asked me. As I had seemingly been having an argument with myself, this guy had closed most of the space between us. Between my ranting and this guy's bizarre behavior, most of the station had evacuated and got the fuck out of Dodge. This left only Duncan, the sheriff, a few brave individuals, and myself. I looked over at Duncan.
How are we gonna handle this, Kimosabe? Sarah told me to keep it low-key, and I'm guessing Sam told you the same.
Yup.
Fuck that,
he said as a grin split his face.
Yup,
I said as I holstered my weapon and cleared the last couple of feet between me and the possessed asshole. I tackled him to the ground and wrapped up his gun arm in a solid arm bar while covering his holstered gun with my body. I guess he never saw it coming, because he only started to struggle once I had him wrapped up. And struggle he did. I felt myself being violently tossed around and slammed off desks as he squirmed, kicked, and flung himself, and correspondingly me, about. Duncan sailed over a table next to us and wrestled the man's head between his knees as he pulled out a Torah and began speaking rapidly in Hebrew. Duncan has an extensive knowledge and understanding of languages. The man began flailing around with renewed vigor, and as Duncan reached the final verse, he stopped altogether. Then, I heard him speak.
Though you may separate me from this world, I will leave you both with one gift. Though I may cling to this body and be sheared from its ties, you will never escape the ancient souls which are intertwined to your souls.
With that, the man let loose a blood-curdling scream and went limp. I laid there exhausted and looked up at Duncan. I felt something stirring in my head, so I looked into Duncan's blank eyes. What the fuck did he mean? And why did he say it to both of us? Alright guys, I gotta get back to the grind, but I thought I'd keep you in the loop of what has happened to me. Also, false alarm. Your mirrors are safe, but we have reports from the archivists that the mirrors may have been a precursor to something much worse. Later.